Start.
2.
Bells and belts. What's going on, everybody? Your boy Man Up here back with my tag team partners. I got Cedric, I got Joey, I got Jason in the house. How's everybody doing today?
What's up?
What's up, brother?
Oh, nothing much. As y'all can see, behind Cedric, on my shoulder, on Joey's shoulder, and even behind Joey, we got some of the belts that the man called Sting has held in his illustrious career. If I'm not mistaken, this man has been going at it for about 40 years now. Man, that is a great career to be able to sustain all of that. So we are going to get into the career of the man they call Sting. But let's go ahead and check in with a couple of people that joined in with us right now, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Generic is in the house tonight. What's up, brother?
Making that sound. He's already got it up there.
Absolutely. Nesh is in the house. Hey, Nesh, you're welcome. The Warden is with us this evening. How you doing, brother? Nice to see you. Thanks for hanging out with us.
All right. Thank y'all for joining us right now.
Vinny's in the house. What's up, Vinny? How you doing, brother?
What's going on? All righty. So, Joey, you want to go ahead and kick us off today?
Man, I'll tell you what. Now, a lot of people know that this past weekend, AEW Revolution is what we're being told at this point is Sting's last match. And at almost 65 years old, I imagine he's probably going to stick to that at this point. But hopefully, we're all kind of hoping low-key that we at least see him on television again one day because, behind the face paint and everything, he's still passing. Like, we can't tell how old he really is. But it was, what a career. Like you said, almost 40 years in professional wrestling. And, we're going to get into everything here in just a minute, but just all that man has accomplished. Yeah, you can't, it's hard to encapsulate that, in one episode, but I'm glad we're here to do it today. Absolutely. And pay tribute to Sting because, growing up all the way as a child until now, he's still just a longtime favorite wrestler. And I think he is for a lot of us.
Absolutely.
Such a tremendous guy. In every phase he's been in, he's just been incredible.
Absolutely. Now, as we go through the show tonight, we're going to cover the different eras of his time. If you all have memories of Sting, please share it in the comments. We definitely want y'all feedback on this episode. So make sure you all drop it in the comments. If there's a particular once we get to that era, if there was something that stood out to you, drop it in the comments and let's talk about it.
Yeah. And I mean, this guy, there are very few wrestlers that don't polarize people. Everybody has their favorites. Everybody has their opinion. Sting is one of those wrestlers. I don't know what it is about him, but there are very few people that don't like Sting or haven't at some point had a favorite memory of Sting at some point in some period of time. And I got to say, my hat's off to the man because very few people leave when it's time in this business, as we've seen time over and over and over again, and he seems smart enough to know that it's time to go. So he's leaving on top when he's still healthy and he can still put on a decent match, and kudos to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It is a sad time to see him go. Woof.
So
I'll tell everybody at home this too. This is, like Cedric was saying, this is going to be a very interactive episode. So we're wanting you guys to ask to give us your memories, but not only that, ask us questions. Like, because I'm going to ask you now. Go ahead and start thinking. What's your favorite Sting memory as we go through this? Drop them in. Start dropping in your memories, and especially as we get to those points. And with this wonderful prepared timeline that we have, we can really talk about this and get into it. And we got a whole hour here to have some fun with it. So definitely ask some questions. I'm going to ask y'all at home some questions too while we're doing this too.
Exactly.
Absolutely. All right. So we get this ball rolling?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. The man called Sting. So we're moving on. So we start in the CWA. Memphis. Yeah. He did wrestle for a time in All California Championship Wrestling, which was an indie wrestling federation that was actually really his real first exposure to the business in terms of actual wrestling. He was recruited by Rick Bassman and brought into a team of 4 bodybuilders who you see there in the top photo there. We, of course, had Jim Hellwig, who went on to become the Ultimate Warrior. We had Sting, Steve Borden. They were also joined by Garland Glory Donahue and Mark Commando Miller were the names. So at that time, Flash, Sting was going by the name Flash. Hellwig was going by Justice. And then you had Glory and you had Commando. And they were known at that time as Power Team USA. That was the stable name.
Okay.
2 gentlemen fell out of wrestling eventually and walked away. Hellwig and Borden continued on together as partners, and they took their show on the road to the CWA as Flash and
Rocket, if I'm mistaken.
They did. They converted. That happened when they went from CWA to UWF. Yeah. So they were still. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I happen to have watched a lot of this stuff on Memphis too. Okay. And for those who don't know, CWA was the name of the Memphis territory back in the day. So, and at the time they came in originally as Power Team USA still into Memphis, and that eventually, which was great because I remember watching the Ultimate or Jim Hellwig get the hell beat out of him by old Phil Hickerson out there, beat the piss out of him in the ring, like just stomped the mud hole in him. So, that was a lot there, and those guys were sleeping in their car at the time and wrestling for peanuts essentially, and like
pretty rough. And actually, Sting took on the name Sting when they moved to the CWA. A lot of people, I think I've read certainly in a lot of articles that he was still running as Flash, and that's when Hellwig turned to Rock. But he actually switched his name when he went to CWA, and they became the Blade Runners in the UWF, and they were managed for a short time by Dutch Mantell, as you can see there in the photo. So and then shortly after that they made a move to the UWF where they were taken on. They were partnered with Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert and Missy Hyatt and
the First Family.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they went on. Hellwig didn't last very long there, less than a year, and he was on his way to Texas. And Sting decided to stay on, and he got partnered with Rick Steiner, who was new in the business himself as well, and they became a member of the Hyatt Eddie Gilbert faction, the Hyatt International.
So, Sting won the UWF tag team titles three times during that stay. Once with twice with Eddie Gilbert and once with Rick Steiner. So.
Correct. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. It wasn't very long before the UWF was purchased by the NWA. Sting contract was bought out by the NWA, and he was brought on to Jim Crockett Promotions, and so we saw a rise in his stock from 87 to 89. He was already starting to get over pretty well in the UWF. When he got to the NWA, they strapped a rocket to his back, and away we went.
Absolutely. We covered this in the episode that we did the history of Mid-Atlantic Jim Crockett Promotions and whatnot. With that acquisition, by far the Sting was the biggest asset that it came from when Jim Crockett Promotions acquired UWF. So
and Rick Steiner, I would say too, was pretty popular as
well. Absolutely. But hindsight being 2020, in which and as the episodes we'll see later, that Sting became known as the franchise.
Absolutely.
So
just a few comments in the
Joe, you got a shout out on YouTube.
You got a shout out from Lee Zadu.
Hello, my friend. Hello. Welcome to the show.
See who we got here. Non-wrestling fans know who Sting is. Nesh says absolutely. Scott's in the house. How you doing, brother? Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out. Brother's a man called Sting, the real icon, the legend, most down-to-earth man. Glad he has made it through the jungle and able to have a good quality of life, enjoying his family and friends.
Absolutely.
wishing them all the very best. Of course, for me, Sting for this is the great mood at any time is always
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
well, that's great because that's good timing because we're in that
Exactly.
era. Here we are now. It's 87
Absolutely.
to 89. Muta is debuting on NWA TV, and we get just an absolute perfect partnership between the great Muta and Sting. What was your first memories of Muta and Sting, guys?
Oh man, yeah, that whole thing. The fact, you have Muta paired with Gary Hart, who definitely one of the most underrated wrestling minds in the history of this business. And then you couple that with Red Hot Sting. I truly feel like this is like truly. Everyone says the match with Flair that he had with Flair at the Great American Bash, whatnot. That put him on the national stage. I want to say that this feud here with Muta is one of the freaking feuds that kind of started to truly define Sting during that time over the world TV title.
Yeah, and I would even argue that series of matches is actually what put him on Ric Flair's radar. I would say that Flair saw in his working with Muta somebody that he could work with and actually really do something with, and I think that certainly was a big factor in his moving into that Four Horsemen, and that whole Four Horsemen feud that's coming up in the next year or two.
Absolutely.
Also, I want to talk about that. Like that whole TV title run was so well done. He had a lot of great opponents, including I shared a video earlier of some of the segment from his feud with the Iron Sheik. He had during his run as the NWA World Television Champion too. Really a great title run. The perfect way you use a championship on that level to build a guy up for the next level. And Sting is one of these guys too, where there was no creative department back then. There was no, there's no Hollywood writers writing for this guy. This guy was cutting solid promos, having great matches, and just got over in such an organic way, and just took every opportunity he had, including becoming the world television champion, and just took it to a higher level, ran with the ball completely. And then him and Muta was so great because it felt like they were both at that same spot in their career.
Absolutely.
Where they were both developing as performers, but you knew that both of them had that major main eventer potential in them.
And actually, it's a testament to how invested the company was to him. I mean, when you think about the Road Warriors feud with Dusty, and you think about the fact that they were willing to flip the Road Warriors heel to help him to help boost him and get him over, and put Dusty with him too at that point in his career, is a testament to how much potential they saw in him. So
absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah. So of course we got to the end of that year in '89, and Flair had been jumped by JTEX, I think they were called JTEX Corporation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Gary Hart's faction with Terry Funk, of course, and Sting stepped in and gave him a hand, and this, of course, ended up providing him with a spot in one of the greatest factions of all time in wrestling history, the Four Horsemen.
Oh, look at the comments. That's a pretty cool fact from Generic Jobber there, JD.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
NWA television title. Oh, that's awesome.
That is pretty cool right there, man.
Slick. So, guys, each of you, which Sting did you like? We're getting there, Scott.
Yeah,
we're getting there.
Save that comment, but it's a really good comment.
It's coming.
It's coming.
So then we move on to the next era of the Horseman feud. This was a year-long sort of like saga.
Yes,
some really great moments in this, some not great moments as well. But we'll get to those. Of course, Sting had the opportunity to join the Horsemen for a very short period of time. He unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, won a 4-man match to win the #1 contender for Flair's title, and the Horsemen didn't take that very well.
Oh, that was that Starrcade tournament in December of '89, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yep.
Yeah, in December of '89. I forgot what they called it because they had the singles and they had the tag team tournament as well.
Yeah, they had the 4-man round robin iron.
Yeah.
Tournament. Starcade '89, actually.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so he won the number 1 contendership for Flair's NWA World Title, which led to a lot of tension. The Horsemen confronted him on February 6th, 1990 at Clash of Champions 10, and they essentially told him he either drops the.
You're no longer a horseman.
No longer a horseman.
You're no longer a horseman.
Yeah.
Holy, yeah.
Holy boy. Holy was rough, boy.
Yeah. He obviously didn't accommodate that request, and they beat him down in the ring, and he was no longer a member of the Four Horsemen. But of course, then we're off to the races because now it's a full-on feud between Sting and the Four Horsemen, and this would carry on for most of the year. Unfortunately, Sting did legitimately get hurt that year in the cage match when he was interfering, and he blew his knee out, which caused them to have to make a last-minute sort of change. And Lex actually got the benefit of that, Lex Luger, and he ended up actually getting inserted into the feud with Flair because Sting couldn't wrestle for a period of time.
That was Capital
Which
Combat.
was at the Capital Combat 1990, where RoboCop was with Sting.
Yeah, so there you sing RoboCop there. One of the best or worst moments in Sting's career, depending on your
With the cage, you got Sting out.
Yeah, so he bent the bars and got Sting out. So obviously there was a partnership between NWA and the RoboCop franchise at that time. It was just a way to sort of help co-market and co-promote. So that happened. We also had at this time 2 other infamous sort of wrestling sort of shenanigans. One of them was Sid Vicious got introduced into the title picture with Flair, and the idea was that Sid had pinned Flair. Then we come to find out that it's really actually Wyndham Sting.
Yeah, let's pump the break. We got a little ahead because that was how we have it. Let's rewind a little bit back to Great American Bash. Where they paid off that story with the Horsemen. When he won the world heavyweight title, we had dudes with attitudes, and we had the Horsemen. So they paid off that feud with that awesome win there, Joey.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite moments in wrestling history. Speaking of that,
Vinny's not a fan of RoboCop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that was dumb, but anyway,
It was dumb.
But Great American Bash 1990, having all the baby faces kind of out there to surround them. Even Mr. Wonderful was out there. He was a baby face at the time. He was out there, and the JYD and the Steiners and all the great baby faces out there surrounding the ring, keeping the Horsemen at bay so Sting could have his fair opportunity at Rick, and then and for Sting to win the world championship that night. And it was so incredible. And then
that pop, bro. That pop.
I loved his own son wearing his Great American Bash 1990 gear this past Sunday was Saturday or Sunday or whatever at Revolution.
Sunday.
Yeah, him coming out in that Great American Bash 90 gear just made me, man. I was so happy because and Sting knows what that means to us fans, for that moment. That was his first world title win, and to me, it still stands out as probably his greatest world title win, just because of, we talked about it, the great year-long storyline, the beautiful build-up to it, just great booking and great everything building up to it, and so the payoff was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to Halloween Havoc. It was you got into the feud.
We got into the feud with Sid, of course, and Flair. We had the triple threat match. It was supposed to be. We came to find out. We thought that at that time Sid had pinned Sting. We come to find out that it was Barry Windham masquerading as
that was a pretty damn good.
Pretty really good.
Fooled for a little bit there.
It did.
And there's a picture of him right there.
Scott's loving himself some Windham Sting.
So if you didn't really like look at the upper body and whatnot, he pulled it off. He really did.
Absolutely. And then we went from that and we transitioned into a run with Sting against the infamous Black Scorpion, which it ended in a final showdown between Sting and the Black Scorpion at Starrcade Collision Course. In December, the cage match ended with Sting pinning and unmasking Scorpion, who, of course, no shock to anybody, was Ric Flair. Yeah. So.
But at one time, it was going to be Al Perez, right?
Yep,
that
it was.
Yep.
And then he didn't keep his job there, and
Yeah.
and they had to do something else.
Exactly.
Then we move on to 91, 93, and now we're in the WCW World Champion sort of position. And so this is, in my opinion, when Sting really starts to come into his his own as a company man. He's carrying the company on his shoulders for the majority of 91 through 93. Honestly, he's certainly the primary face in the company, and a lot of the stories and angles are built around him and his character.
Absolutely. We see definitely a who's who of WCW at that time. His feud with Nikita Koloff, then that absolutely, and his feud with freaking Big Bam Vader, man, that always sticks out in my mind there, Joe.
I still think during this time he had phenomenal matches, winning the WCW World Heavyweight title from Lex Luger at Super Brawl 2 at the beginning of 1992 was phenomenal. But I'll even say the storyline build to that was done well too, because if you remember, in 1991, after Luger won the WCW World Championship, Sting won the tournament to crown the new United States Heavyweight Champion, and it would be his first run with the U.S. title. And he had a great run with that until the debut in WCW of one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Ravishing Rick Rude. And if you want to talk to me about who fits in that top position as one of Sting's greatest opponents of all time and who had just great chemistry with him, you have to talk about Ravishing Rick Rude. Because those two had such great chemistry in the ring.
He happened to be our mystery wrestler of the day yesterday, Mr. Rick Rude. This whole week we're doing a feature on Sting and his career. And he's definitely in the top 5 or 6 in terms of greatest opponents for Sting. He has to be in that equation for sure.
But I loved that storyline they pulled. It was an old Mid-South storyline. I guess Bill Watts had pulled out of his back pocket there for the match between Sting defending the U.S. title against Ravishing Rick Rude, and then Luger clipping the knee out from under him before the match started, and then Sting gets carted off, in an ambulance, and then he heroically comes back with his knee all taped up and fights gallantly. But at the end of the day, Rude and his underhanded tactics with Heyman in his corner, Paulie dangerously winning the U.S. title, but keeping Sting super strong and building him up for that world title match coming up with Lex Luger at Super Brawl.
Yeah. And for me, that belt, that version of the WCW World Heavyweight Championship is synonymous with 3 men. It's Ron Simmons, obviously, Vader, and Sting. Like it just like those that belt belongs to those 3 men, really. So
yeah, absolutely.
Sting Squadron
stand up, has it on his shoulder there, looking good.
Hey, Joey, Sting Squadron versus the Dangerous Alliance in War Games, brother.
Yes,
one of the most underrated factions in my opinion, of all history. The Dangerous Alliance.
Jesus,
I mean, look at that group of
names
wrestlers.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the best of the best in that group. Even though we didn't know what Austin was going to become at that time, but you could tell he had greatness in him, and I mean, he was surrounded with just amazing talent.
Absolutely. We see the folks got some memories as well.
Absolutely.
This area as well.
See here, Sting versus Vader and all the matches in
absolutely.
Oh man,
you are telling no lies, sir. You are telling no lies.
The White Castle of Fear.
Iconic Sad Rude's last match happened against Sting or ended in Japan.
Yes,
that's hard. I looked for photos of that.
Of a match there too. Man, they had a banger. So they were still in 1994, still having amazing matches.
There's a couple of very, very grainy video clips of the fall, but there's not a whole lot of footage from that match, unfortunately. So yeah. So moving on to 94 to 95, we have the introduction of the WCW International World Heavyweight Championship because of all the Ric Flair complications going on with the title leaving and then the title coming back. And so we have the culmination of the Rick Rude and Sting sort of feud, unfortunately due to Rick Rude's injury and health situation. Dangerous Lines with the Heenan family, WCW, great. Yeah.
Okay.
Very good
Okay.
comment.
So yeah, I mean, and then of course we had the introduction of Hogan into the mix in WCW, and that kind of changed the landscape in terms of priorities in the company, obviously. And Hogan suddenly became the number one face in the company for obvious reasons. And Sting was still there, but he wasn't the sole focus anymore in the company. How did you feel about this time period with Sting in his career? What did you think?
Joey.
That's to me when WCW started to lose its identity.
Yeah.
Like to me, that's when the feel of the WCW kind of went downhill to me. And I, looking back on it, and no, I mean, again, Sting had his second run with the U.S. heavyweight title during this time too.
He did.
And there was nothing wrong with anything he was doing. There you see him working with Kensuke Sasaki, who would end up unseating him as the U.S. heavyweight champion in a match there. He was still having amazing matches. I just think, when you start bringing in Macho Man, Hogan, and all these guys, and then you started going into the creative direction where we started seeing the Dungeon of Doom and all that hokey stuff. Evad Sullivan, which was hilarious, but still, like, it's just a lot of, it got away from, the feel that WCW had coming out of Jim Crockett Promotions, where it definitely felt more like real professional wrestling and less like sports entertainment. But to me, when they got to this, that's when WCW started to lose its identity. And yeah, I guess to a degree, Sting had lost some momentum, but I still say that, Sting was such a great big star. There was no hiding it. Hogan might have been the focus, but Sting was still, so many people's favorite.
I agree with this statement right here. I agree with that comment. I really do.
Well, but here's the thing. At that point when they brought, I don't want to stay on this too long. When they brought freaking Hogan and whatnot. Time Warner when I was saying, hey, we're losing freaking money. We got to do something to freaking bring to turn this thing around. Hogan was available. They brought him in. At that point, Hogan was a bigger name than freaking Sting. So should they have done it? I mean, it is what it is. But you got to look at the wrestling landscape as well.
But you're telling it in a way that's, you're saying Time Warner. The real story is Bischoff fought to bring him in, and he had to convince them to bring Hogan in. It wasn't like that. Savage coming in was different. Savage's Slim Jim thing paid for Savage's contract.
Right.
That's coming from Bischoff. Hogan, on the other hand, took a lot of selling and stuff to WCW to get him in there. It wasn't just like they were on Bischoff wanting him to bring in Hogan, or necessarily that they were hemorrhaging money or anything. I think that they wanted. I think that the convincing factor was them wanting to get on the same level as the World Wrestling Federation.
Yeah.
And they were obviously not on that level as far as crowd size or gates and everything like that.
Vinny's saying Hogan filled more seats, which isn't wrong. I mean, he did.
Yes.
I get that from a money standpoint.
Scott says Sting got pushed to the side and Savage and Hogan overshadowed when he came in. But Sting always was.
I wouldn't agree with that. I don't think Savage overshadowed Sting. I think Savage did a lot to work with Sting.
Yeah.
Because we saw them tag up a lot and stuff like that. And I really think Savage, the difference between a Hogan and a Savage is Savage came in the company and worked hard to get everybody else over.
Mm-hmm.
Hogan didn't do that.
I think this is when Sting starts to really cement his franchise legacy with the NWA and the WCW. He was the guy that never left. He's the guy that didn't jump like Taker did in WWE. Really, honestly, he became the equivalent of that in the NWA and WCW. Hogan is his own thing. Whether he was in WWE or in WCW, he was always going to be over, and he was going to be popular. Sting, I think, in contrast to Hogan and Savage coming in and being big draws, managed to sort of cement his own sort of place in this era. So it was, I think it was a win for him in a different way. He wasn't the most over at that time necessarily, and he wasn't certainly the focus of the company anymore. I don't think they had the rocket strapped to his back anymore. But I think he certainly found a way to stay relevant. That was for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Then he says they created something special at WCW, but they didn't know what to do next. That killed them. Just a horrible ending. Well,
we'll get into the end of WCW.
Yeah.
Let's get into that actually, because here we go. So we're going into 96 and 98, and now we're starting to get into a transition. The
whole lot of finger pointing during that time.
A whole lot of finger pointing. And it's funny. I was looking at these pictures, went back, and I forgot how gradual the evolution of the Crow figure actually was for him. I mean, to go from the brown hair surfer Sting, it wasn't just an overnight snap, and he's got the white paint and the hair. He was making a very gradual transition, starting to wear all black. Didn't quite figure out what the face paint was going to be yet. He was trying to keep that Sting original paint and sort of work it into the Crow kind of imagery, but I guess he obviously abandoned that one with the full paint eventually. But this was sort of, I think this is probably a period of time that people would say, especially in 96, was maybe not his best year. 96 in his transition. Listening to interviews he's given over the last week or two, he was struggling a lot with drug issues at this time and depression and a lot of fatigue. He was pretty burnt out. What do you guys remember about this time period? I'm talking early, like 96, and before we get the full Crow.
I liked how they when with the rise of the NWO and everything and whatnot, and they brought in the imposter Sting and everything. They thought it was the actual Sting. Again, another good doppelganger. From a distance, you couldn't really tell. You really thought it was Sting, but whatnot, and that kind of led to Sting moving off to the side, then come back in full blast with the Crow character and battling the NWO. Absolutely.
I thought the story was
Platinum in the house. How you doing, brother? Thanks for hanging out.
Got the internet back.
Got the internet back. Damn.
Nice.
All right.
Scott says, agree with that. Savage wasn't afraid to work with guys, put them over.
Yeah. You got to give Randy credit. Randy did a lot to bring everyone else up to his level. Like he worked with Sting a lot and helped Sting become.
He says he was hooked on the Crow gimmick. I was a Hogan mark too, but that change in character was just fantastic.
Ben is a huge Hogan mark.
It was well booked. It was really well booked, and I enjoyed the whole story. I enjoyed the interaction where remember when Luger and Sting were world tag team champions at that time prior to that, and Luger was a heel but Sting was a babyface, but they were still like best friends.
Yep.
And Jimmy,
that was an interesting dynamic too.
That was a really good dynamic. I really enjoyed that. And I think the one thing to note about this is where you could not hold Sting's abilities and charisma and star power down.
No,
this is where he caught up to those guys.
He was smart enough himself to see that wrestling was shifting again, and we were getting away from the cartoon characters, and we're getting away from the bubblegum stuff, and we were moving into a more sort of adult realism, sort of darker sort of period of time. And so he was smart enough to sort of evolve with the times, which was to his credit. And as Vinny pointed out, that's become sort of wrestling folklore now. Certainly. Scott Hall gave him the idea for the Crow look. So,
but this is where he became on an even keel with all those guys, Hogan, Savage, all of them. He was as big as. This is where he really reached that stardom as he got into this character.
Yeah,
like there was no time.
This obviously is where we got to.
Exactly.
Where we start to see the full evolution of the character. We're getting Sting in the rafters. We're getting him coming down from the ceiling, and we're seeing that darker image with the character. He's got the baseball bat, he's got the trench coat, and he's being directly pitted against the NWO, but more specifically Hogan. So, and it's interesting, just a side note, it's come out in chats and discussions. Eric Bischoff has confirmed this. Sting was actually originally going to be the third man in the NWO. It wasn't going to be Hogan. It was going to be Sting. So that transition with the brown hair and getting into the darker stuff, by all accounts, that was perhaps leading towards him flipping as heel and being a member of the NWO. But Hogan decided he wanted that spot. And he politicked for it backstage, and to his credit, he made it into something pretty special. Hogan, I mean when I say that.
No, I will say this is my favorite part of Sting taking down NWO, and that particular comment right there.
100%. We'll get into that too, because I got some stuff to say about that. Because that's what ruined the match at the top of this thing here was Hogan, because he was selfish and he wouldn't put Sting over the right way. And then he managed to keep Nick Patrick from, performing a fast count as it should be done. Even Nick Patrick has confirmed that it was Hogan's politicking and, getting in Bischoff's ear and then telling him, no, it shouldn't come off as a fat, and to me, that did a lot to just kill the momentum of the whole angle. Like whenever that match happened and it went over like a fart in church, which it did, like, how could you drop the ball on an angle like that? Like where you built it up so big for this match, and then Hogan's so selfish he can't put the guy over.
Of all of his errors, I would say this and the Surfer Sting are probably the two most known errors of his career for certain, in terms of visuals and in terms of notoriety and probably national exposure. This is certainly his most known persona, I would say, out of all of them, probably. So,
well, he still kind of did it to the end of his career.
What's that?
He still was kind of riding that through his AEW career. He still kind of pretty much was doing.
Yeah,
I mean, he was talking and stuff, but he was still in this kind of appearance.
Yeah, like 9 months in the making for a dud. Yeah. It just didn't pay off. It didn't pay off the way it should perhaps have. The infamous fast count that ruined a great story that was being told. Generic says,
if it had been a fast count, it would have told the story. But like,
yeah, absolutely. So we come out of 96, 98, and then of course now we're at the NWO has now fully jumped the shark, and everybody and their dog is a member of the NWO. So what do? You create the Wolfpack, which is the cooler faction of the two NWO factions, because nobody wants to be in black and white anymore, because that's not cool. So,
you do the feud against the NWO, then you want to join even a freaking faction of it.
It just felt like everybody was joining the NWO, and it just did. You couldn't even like it. It completely lost itself by this point. Is this good booking, or is this just ego stroking by this point?
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got nothing to say on that one.
Yeah.
So we're
moving on.
And he's like, now it's getting bad.
Yeah, just let that one go.
Somebody said I need to find my Wolfpack shirt. Hey, look, I love the memorabilia. I get it, I do. But this felt like Power Rangers by this point.
At this point, it was like, who booked this crap?
Who's the green one and who's the yellow one by this point? All right, so then we get into the WCW, the last years of the WCW, 99 to 2001. Really, the only memorable feud he had during this time period was if you can call it memorable, was his run with Vampiro.
Okay.
The graveyard matches, a lot of that stuff. The WCW decided to do the absolute unthinkable with that character, and they decided to try to turn him heel. That went over like, as Joey likes to say, a fart in church. That didn't go very well at all. And then, of course, just fast forwarding to the end of 2001 with the purchase of WCW with WWE, he and Flair, of course, were the final match on the card, meant to symbolize two old school guys that were the heart and soul of the company, and Sting, of course, who never left.
Yeah.
Memories of this time period, not his best time period, definitely.
I mean, that match was great. Him and Flair on the last Nitro, they did have a pretty good match at the end there. Even though Flair had kind of been out of the ring a lot, and really wasn't in ring shape. But
yeah,
I mean, they still went out there and they did their stuff. They got all their stuff in.
Well, it makes sense
and-
actually, generic, that New Japan did a better job with the NWO factions, because the original storyline was ripped off of a couple of cross promotional feuds in Japan that Eric had caught wind of and was used as sort of a model for the idea. So it kind of makes sense actually, really.
Yeah.
So no strong memories. No, we'll probably move on from this. This wasn't the best time period. So move on from here. Flair versus Sting. First and last match in Nitro history. Yep. Yeah. So it was a nice bookend in that it was a nice close of the chapter, but it was a tough period of time. Jumping ahead to 2008 through 2014, we had Sting in TNA Wrestling. Man, now, for me in TNA, I'll say this. What I loved about TNA in this time period is that you were getting people to take chances and go outside of their comfort zone. And you could say that with Kurt Angle, you could say that with AJ Styles, you could say that with Christian Cage, you could say that with a lot of the people that were sort of in those top positions were really sort of being challenged to sort of take their characters in different directions. Did it work all the time? Not necessarily, but it was really fun to see, and it was really interesting to see, where they would take some of this stuff. We got a lot of different looks of Sting and his character potential, and a lot of different sort of styles of Sting in the TNA. What were your favorite memories of this period of time?
I thought the Main Event Mafia was cool.
Yeah.
I liked that whole collection of talent right there. Sting had a great run in freaking TNA. I'll link to Joey on this next statement. His addition to that definitely elevated the I want to say street cred, but I would say you definitely elevated the brand.
Fight TV he just carried all that prestige and everything with him. And this was like, we talked about kind of the end of WCW and how he wasn't really utilized well. And then you get here and it was like a whole career revitalization. Mm-hmm. And Sting really, like you were talking about, he had a lot of creative freedom, and we got to see what kinds of things else Sting could come up with and do really good with. And just looking at that montage there that you made is amazing. And looking at one of my favorite matches in Sting's career was he and Jeff Jarrett at Bound for Glory, where he won the NWA World Title, technically for the second time.
Because that Mafia
his first
too.
World title was the NWA World Title, and to win the Dome Globe there from Jeff Jarrett, I thought they had a hell of a match. They had Kurt Angle. That was right after Kurt Angle got there in 2006. It was Bound for Glory 2006. And Kurt Angle was the special enforcer, so he kind of had the Bret Hart role from the Hogan and Sting match kind of there. But I thought that was a really good build up to a match where Sting had kind of said he was done in wrestling if he couldn't win the world championship again. And this was it. This was off to the races again with Sting being a world champion again and being a top guy. And I loved if for those of you who are watching, that's the shot of him with the Dome Globe up there where he kind of brought back kind of a hybrid character of the Surfer Sting and the Crow Sting up there, where he went back to kind of the long tights without the singlet top, and he whipped himself into really good shape again. He had abs, obviously leaner and not as big as he was during his prime and everything, but he looked phenomenal. They had him and Jeff had a lot of great chemistry to me.
Here's an interesting comment from Vinny. Vinny said, I always felt TNA was a place where older guys went to finish their careers. Saddest part was seeing Kurt Hennig wrestle for the last time there.
I
mean, yes, but maybe in the earlier part of the promotion. I think it kind of evolved as it went, for sure. Yeah. And I think Sting was a big part of that evolution, honestly.
Yeah. He ended up having lots of world title reigns there because I totaled it up, and Sting is a 15-time world champion overall. And like 5 of those were won in TNA.
And I would say if you're a fan of a Samoa Joe, or you're a fan of an AJ Styles, or you're a fan of a Robert Roode, or you're a fan of any of these guys that were sort of TNA sort of early day wrestlers, I would say that you owe a lot of thanks to Sting, to Christian Cage, to these wrestlers that came in from outside and sort of infused some of that big promotion energy into that promotion. And not only that, it really sort of taught them storytelling, taught them TV work and things like that. I think that was a big part of the jump in TNA in those mid years. So
Absolutely.
and to his credit, I mean, when you look at this montage of stuff, like, I mean, that is a pretty wide range of characters.
A whole career in of itself.
Yeah, that in itself and that's completely discounting NWA through WCW.
Yeah.
And everything that he accomplished prior to that. I mean, to go from a character like he had with Surfer Sting Crow to the main event Mafia to the Joker persona, and then to come back full circle to the Sting Crow Surfer fusion again is a pretty impressive.
Nice range.
Yeah, pretty impressive range.
Yep, he kept himself. I mean, he was so still important in professional wrestling during this time, and like you said, build all these stars up that he built, and like you said, they all, from AJ Styles to all of them, they all got a rub from Sting in the company, and we had never got to without Sting coming to TNA. Look at all the matches we would have missed. Him and Kurt Angle, him and Jeff Jarrett, we saw him and Jeff in WCW a little bit, but they did their best work in TNA. So there's all these feuds, all these matches. It's sad that Jeff Hardy and Sting ended up the way it was, and that
don't bring that one up. Don't bring that one up.
Yeah. But I'm just saying.
That's more on Jeff and his issues than
I know.
On Sting, so.
But that was horrible.
Yeah,
Sting was.
And I know
still
Sting had to end that
time,
match.
so.
Sting wanted to go ahead and end that match early because he thought he was going to seriously hurt Jeff. So he
held him down. He legit pinned him. Like he held him down because Jeff was struggling, but he held him down.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So then we go from TNA Impact, and then we of course transitioned into. Now this surprised me because I didn't realize he was there as long as he was. And then when I say there, I don't mean in the ring wrestling, but from 2014 to 2020, he was licensed and affiliated with the WWE. So a 6-year period of time. We really only think about the last 2 years where he was active in the ring and working, but he was affiliated with and using his likeness and his image with the company for a full 6 years.
Yeah, I think he had a Legends contract after the in-ring in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. TNA did feel like it at one time.
Here's a question for the audience. Do you think this added anything? This is a question for everybody at home too. Do y'all think that this period and this Hall of Fame and then this WrestleMania match, did this really add anything to his career in your opinion? Did he need this? Y'all at home too, make a comment in there. What do you think about this?
No.
I think that he deserved the money, and he deserved the exposure, the national exposure. I mean, just getting in one of their video games could buy you a house. So I think he deserved the adulation, and he deserved the respect, and he deserved it isn't as though doing this gave him more credibility by any stretch of the imagination, but it certainly put him in a different financial demographic in terms of what he got from it. And he'd earned it. He'd put the years in through NWO and through the NWA and WCW and also TNA. So yeah, I understood why he did it. I got it like the whole time it was happening. So
it served its purpose to check a box for him. Maybe he was able to perform at WrestleMania, but like Vinny said, it's like the match at freaking WrestleMania. Yeah, it felt like a. It was
who booked that match with Triple H? That was pretty bad overall.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just think it was obviously meant to sort of show the coalition between, or the relationship between the NWO and DX.
Yeah.
But again, that's a behind the scenes kind of insider thing, and it's kind of public information and public knowledge. But again, whenever you book backstage stuff in put it out in front of public eye, it doesn't always go over because not everybody knows what the hell's going on or what that even means or represents. So
I just don't think anyone cared about that in 2015.
The
No,
only
that
thing,
time,
the only
anybody
thing I
cared.
was shocked was just when he finally showed up and you heard his music. Well, heard the crow sound effect like he was
Yeah.
there. I was like, wait a minute, what the hell?
They
'Cause
should have, in
at
my
that
opinion. Sorry, go ahead, buddy.
No, I was just gonna say at that point, I remember him saying he never really wanted to go to WWE. I don't know what changed his mind, or if he felt like Cedric said.
According to him, it
check
was
a
they
box.
were dangling the Undertaker match in front of his nose the whole
Oh.
time, and he wanted that match with Taker. That was it. He was over there because
Well-
he wanted to work with Taker.
Oh,
I think it's the money too, like you said. I think
Yeah.
they probably offered him many millions to come in and do what he did and go in the Hall of Fame and everything. So I'm sure he got big paydays from all that stuff. And they obviously wanted to use him in video games and all that stuff because they know that would sell video games for them, with people to be able to have Sting in them would be huge. But
Yeah.
and
Yep.
I don't think it's losing the match at WrestleMania or losing matches that hurt Sting, because
No.
no.
I think
No.
by this time Sting could lose a match every night, and he was on the same level with guys like the Undertaker, where
Yeah.
he could lose every night, but people would still pay to see him. He was,
Right.
he carried that headliner kind of
Attraction.
mystique about him and everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not losing. It's just the fact that you make him lose with a really stupid match and a stupid finish. And the whole thing was just,
Yeah. They should have. They really, honestly, should have just booked him and Taker that summer. That should have been, or that year. That should have been the Taker. That should have been him and Taker, and they should have had it done and put it in the books. But they had to, again, just trying to keep him there longer. Honestly, I think is all it was. Just trying to sort of keep him interested there for longer. So
yeah.
and obviously that whole run left a terrible taste in his mouth. The injury with his match against Seth Rollins, being forced into retirement, obviously left a bad taste in his mouth, which led us to
AEW.
his eventual return back to wrestling in 2020 and his run in AEW. You can say what you want to say about Tony Khan. You can say what you want to say about AEW. This is one thing they did right.
Yeah.
The way that they used him, the way they partnered him with Darby Allin, the way that they let Darby be his bump machine and let him sort of be what he is, which is a respected, sort of smart, character-driven performer, and they did it well. I have to say, there weren't very many things about the Sting run in AEW that I have any criticism about.
Yeah. Definitely a pretty solid run. They definitely did. They did right by him. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, Vinny. Yeah, he always took the high road.
Exactly. And the caveat on Vinny's comment, whatnot, you don't hear people talk bad about Sting. So yeah, absolutely.
No.
Be honest with you, I haven't nobody say nothing bad about him.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But I mean, he got somebody over that probably would have struggled initially to do so. He was able to keep his character and portray him the way he wanted to portray him. He obviously had a lot of creative license in the company. He was able to tie, if he was anywhere else but AEW, showing up for Muta would have been an impossibility. So being able to sort of tie the bow on that relationship, both as friends and as professionals, was beautiful to see that. And they let him go out on top, which never happens in this business. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
I just thought of something very fun that we got 5 minutes left. Throw up Scott's last comment there, JD.
Absolutely.
He said that you will never get the Taker Sting's match. As only best his mouth. Well, here's something. Being that we never did get the match or whatnot. Sting versus Taker. How would you guys book that match?
Let me say this. Aside from booking, I don't think they would have had a good match. And that's just my opinion, because I don't think, to me, I'm just going to go ahead and say this, and this is going to be a very unpopular thing to say. Undertaker's not a great worker. He's just not. Like, he's a guy that needs guys like Shawn Michaels and people to be able to work with for me to have great matches. Because if you look back at, I mean, even some of his matches with other people, he had a lot of stinkers. And I don't think he had good chemistry with like Steve Austin, even though they had tons of matches and stuff like that. So as great as Sting is, with Sting's kind of already limited capabilities at that point and Undertaker's limited capabilities at that point in 2015, I don't think that would have been a good match. So I honestly think him working with Triple H was probably better as far as like if they had have been a good match, if they had have had a good match. I think if you had to just let Sting and Triple H have a straight up match, they probably could have had a much better match instead of involving all those guys and weapons and a sledgehammer and a baseball bat and all this crap. But in my opinion, I don't think him and Undertaker would have had a good match.
Really? Okay. JD?
I think the best part of the match would have been the first 5 minutes.
Okay.
And then, I think
The entrances.
the entrances would have been amazing. I think the mood
That's the
would have
first
been
5 minutes, right?
Yeah, I think that would have been amazing, and the mood would have been amazing. I think you keep it. If I'm booking it, I keep it very short.
Okay.
And Taker goes over because it never hurt Sting to lose. Taker would have gone over. That would have made Vince happy because one of his WWE boys won.
Yeah.
And they got the match they wanted. But it needed to be short. It couldn't be a long drawn out thing. Couldn't be Taker and Brock or anything.
Absolutely. Man up real quick.
I think it kind of like what AJ Styles wanted, that cinematic match. I think that's probably something they would have done.
Oh, that's a good idea. Actually, that would have been a way to do it.
Would it have went over? Probably not. But I think that's one way they could have done it.
Certainly, the cinematic match is a way to get around some of the limitations. So
you would have had to see Sting.
A lot of fans didn't want to see Sting lose. Period. And if it's a short match with Taker, just would that have been like a squash match practically? I mean, why bring Sting in to squash him with the Undertaker? It's like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's why I feel like Sting should not have been in the ring with the Undertaker, because I don't think God knows, like even the match with Brock Lesnar to me was a stinker. I'm sorry, the one where Brock
or you partner Taker and Sting up and you put them against the Wyatt family at that time or something like that, and let them
that's a good one.
And let them bump for them.
That's a good one.
And let them bump like crazy for them, and that would have been probably a better match. So
okay, all right. To put a bow on this, yeah, absolutely.
We got to go back to one of Scott's earlier.
Exactly.
Oh, here we are.
There we go. All right, I'll go. I like Surfer Sting. I liked it. The come up. The match with Flair. That cemented me. That cemented me. That had me buy in. Surfer Sting for me.
Yeah, I agree because to me it was the ultimate babyface character, and he, he was a guy that he knew, like Sting had such an ability to work with anybody and to be able to make it work, make them a better heel, and he was great at selling. He was, Surfer Sting was doing dives over the top rope out to the floor. He had such great energy and he was fearless.
Right.
To me, so that's what I loved about that version.
Man up.
Okay, y'all already know I'm gonna go with the man who used to walk with millions, now walks alone. I gotta go with Crow Sting only because he took down one of my most hated factions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to say no to Surfer Sting. I mean that I bought magazines because of that face paint.
Nice.
I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I mean, he looked like a superhero when you were a kid. You saw that
little
on a video.
stingers, brother.
When you saw that on a VHS tape, like I mean, you got the video. Like that was, maybe you were planning to watch something else, but you got that video.
Awesome.
So I think Surfer Sting is my nostalgic favorite.
And
I love what the Crow Sting was being built to, like we talked about. If it had a different payoff, I might answer differently and say Crow Sting. I think it was the most interesting character. I think the potential for that and the payoff of that could have been amazing. It just unfortunately didn't become what it could have been.
Absolutely. And it seems like we got a lot of bunch of Surfer Stings in the comments, JD.
We do. Here, let me get through this. So we had generic, definitely Surfer Sting will always be my favorite. Yeah, for sure. Scott says in the prime or at the end of the series with the invasion angle probably would have worked out better. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Surfer Sting, Nesha, for sure. There was never a bad Sting. No, and that's the great thing about it. None of them are really, well, except maybe
Wolfpack. Yeah, that was horrible.
Scott says I have respect for all the incarnations.
They
They were in the right place at the right time, knew what he needed to change, and loved them all. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
you look at the screen, and what I look at is like just like a Taker. Yeah, you see somebody that understood how to change with the times and keep themselves relevant.
Yeah,
that's how. I mean, if you could sit down a school of new wrestlers and teach them anything from that, that's probably his greatest legacy, aside just like with Taker, honestly. So,
and I still say, like I'm having memories back of his matches with Ravishing Rick Rude too, because I loved that Sting knew how to play to the crowd at the right times, and I remember him giving like Rude an atomic drop, and Rude would sell it so well. He'd be making that weird face and walking funny with holding his butt. And then Sting would get behind him and do the Rick Rude hip swivel and stuff like that. Just to mess it up even further. But that, he was, just again, such a great legend, a guy that could made everybody he was in the ring with better.
Absolutely.
My whole love of Japanese wrestling started when I saw Tiger Mask in Calgary, and when I saw Muta on the NWA TV, and Sting was wrestling them, and that was just magic to me. Like Muta and Sting, that partnership was just,
it really was.
It was just magic, and that brought me to follow Muta over to Japan and watch that wrestling, and stay in the NWA and watch that wrestling. So I found two new passions through Sting, honestly. So
awesome, good deal.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps up our retrospective of the man they called Sting.
Love it.
And hell of a career.
Great career.
You guys out there, if you're watching and you like this type of show and you want to see next month Melee be like a career retrospective of another wrestler, go ahead and drop that in the comments. Tell us who you want to see us cover. We could do that next month on the Melee too. We can take another legend.
Yes, and they don't have to be retired. It can be somebody that you think deserves a career retrospective. Let us know.
Yeah, we definitely want to hear your interaction. We changed the format what we usually do on Monthly Melee, the highlights thing. But if this is something that you like, let us know. Let us know. We're listening. We're listening.
Yeah.
What
do we got coming up next week?
Oh dear God, I got to pull out the calendar.
Put you on the spot.
While he's pulling up the calendar, let me just go ahead and say this.
Let's go ahead and roll into that. Yeah.
While he's pulling up the calendar, let me say this here. I am having a giveaway. Before the video drops in the morning, can y'all tell me what my belt is? The two hints is it was presented by The Undertaker, and it was never in a wrestling ring. So can y'all tell me what y'all think that belt is? Leave it in the comments. Leave it in the group on Bells and Belts, or right here on YouTube. And the first person to get it right, y'all will win that giveaway.
Awesome. So yes, I'll stay tuned. Next week we're coming with the panel's top 10 favorite matches.
Yes, that's going to be great.
So
top 10.
Yeah,
top 10 of all time, like the greatest, our opinion, top 10 greatest match. Oh man,
exactly. So
we gotta start working on that now.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And you at home start working on it now. We want to see your top 10s next week. We live for it. So bring it.
Exactly. So you guys have your list ready. If you guys watching us on YouTube, we thank you very much. Man already talked about the giveaway. But best way to get for those giveaway, participate in those type of things is to like and subscribe, right, man?
Oh yeah, you know, if y'all want to participate in what we got going on, like Joey said earlier, y'all do drive this show, you know, with your opinions and with your ideas. You know, we come up with ideas too, but you know, we do listen to our audience and you know things that y'all like as well. So if you want to see more of that, all you got to do is subscribe to us here on YouTube. Why? Because we do more than just these 1 hour shows. We do live events, belt unboxing, belt reviews. We do anything that is pertaining to wrestling. That's why we're called Bells and Belts and everything in between. So make sure you subscribe, you like, you leave a comment. And with that being said, Joey, what else can they do?
Well, speaking of that, you know, coming up when we get to 1,000 subscribers, we're going to be giving away a belt. Man Up's also got an awesome event chair from
sitting right here.
An awesome WWE event he went to. We're going to be giving those things away at 1,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you do that. And you also, to win these items, you have to be a member of our Facebook group. So make sure you join Bells and Belts on Facebook. Look us up, and if you see the logo you see there next to Jason, you're in the right place.
Absolutely, and the awesome graphics. Yeah, the awesome graphics and stuff.
It looks like it's here for me.
Exactly. All the awesome graphics and the knowledge and trivia and stuff. You get all that good stuff over at Champions Belt Club.
Yeah, come check us out. We dedicated an entire week to the man called Sting. So if you enjoyed tonight's episode, come hang out with us. We do daily trivia. We do, yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. We do daily trivia. We do daily quizzes. We do current wrestling news, historical stuff, and we have a Friday Fantasy tournament that we run every week. This week we are doing the final match in our top 12 greatest TNA World Champions of all time, and lo and behold, it's between the man called Sting and Kurt Angle. So drop into the page. Let us know what you think on Friday. Tell us who you think should be the man.
Awesome.
Can't wait. That's a good one. And don't forget, leave comments of what y'all think the new belt is. With that being said, we want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank y'all for giving us y'all time this evening. And y'all have yourself a great week, because we will be back here next week.